Nobody can have failed to notice recently that there seems to have been a great upsurge in racial violence. Tonight, Whale On looks at the question of whether there should actually be a law against racial violence. Good evening, thank you. A specific law against racial violence, would it help improve things? Why haven't we got to a situation where things are improved anyway after all these years? Why can't we sort of live together? I don't know the answer. I don't suppose anybody does. Do you have any theories? Mark Wadsworth is the National Secretary of the Anti-Racial Alliance. Have you got any theories why we can't live together? Why are people sort of so upset by the colour of someone's skin?
Well, I think a lot's got to lie at the door of government who have used the economic recession to start to scapegoat the oldest target in this country, and that is black people, people of colour. And we saw that with the Racist Asylum and Immigration Appeals Bill, which sent out a clear signal to the mindless thugs in society that you could go out nigger bashing or Paki bashing all over again. And that's why we in the Anti-Racist Alliance want to see a specific criminal offence of racial violence. That would result in people actually reporting instances.
Yeah. People will say, though, that if you went and burned a black man's house down or a black woman's house, that you would be, if you were caught, you would be done for arson, possibly attempted murder anyway. Why would there be a benefit in a specific law called racial violence?
Well, because it would reflect the severity of the actual offence, which we're not seeing at the moment. Let me give you an example.
I mean, it's pretty severe, burning somebody's house down, isn't it?
When people report such extreme incidents, it's treated like a domestic. The police say, well, why don't you take out a civil action? And the police don't want to act themselves. If you have a specific criminal law, the police are forced to act. Now, that's not the only remedy. There are all sorts of other things we need to do as well. We're a community built on resistance against oppression, but we also require, as citizens, laws to protect us. For instance, women have a specific criminal offence of rape, and that's necessary, because although sexual violence is covered in other parts of the criminal code, there needs to be a specific offence to indicate society's abhorrence of these attacks on a particularly vulnerable section of society, women and black people.
Jean Cousins, you're the commission, you're not the Commission for Racial Equality, but as far as this programme tonight is concerned, you are. A lot of people say that this law, and a lot of people have said that when we had the Race Relations Bill brought in, that it just backfired and it actually made people more racist than they perhaps were. Do you think this bill could actually make things worse?
I think this a specific criminal offence of racial violence might well be very helpful. Now, I think it's important to say that the law by itself can't be the whole answer. All sorts of other things need to happen as well, public education and so on. But I think that the laws we have at the moment, which you're right in saying do cover racial violence, simply aren't working, so we need more. They aren't working because we know that there are at least 8,000 racial attacks already every year, and we know that probably only 1 in 20 victims of racial attacks even have the confidence to report those attacks. So something else must be done, and the Commission thinks that a specific criminal offence would do two things, really. It would be a clear statement by the government of its commitment to getting rid of this kind of behaviour, and it would set standards of public behaviour. It would say what kind of behaviour was not acceptable. And secondly, I think it would be part of a good practical deterrent against the perpetrators. Now, nobody's under any illusion that it's going to clear up overnight just because there is a crime. But I think that the government has shown that it can follow the logic of that argument. As Mark said, there is a specific crime of rape. There's also the Football Offences Act, which is designed to make illegal racial chanting at football grounds. Now, that was already illegal under
the... Can they catch people for doing that? It must be very difficult.
Well, they can, and they have made dozens of arrests since that law has come in, and that was already covered under public order legislation beforehand.
I mean, would it work the same way, that if a white guy was walking down the street and he was chased by a group of black youths and beaten up, if he came to you or to the ARA, would you take up his case?
Of course it would apply. We're talking about racial motivation. But the reality is, the harsh reality is that if you're black or Asian in this country at the moment, you stand up to 50 times more chance of being the victim of a racial attack than if you're white.
Peter Herbert, you're the barrister chair of the Society of Black Lawyers. Is the law to blame? Do you think that there's sort of this underlying racism, not necessarily perpetrated purposefully, if I can put it that way, by people, but an underlying racism that people who become lawyers and barristers and judges and people like that actually have inbuilt in them?
Well, I think firstly you've got to recognise that judges and barristers and solicitors don't even deal fairly with their own colleagues, let alone the general public. So I think one has to start from that premise. And secondly, that the system of law in this country was meant for a certain minority and was not meant to protect the interests of black people. If one looks at it in that reality, one can understand why there is a reluctance on the part of the courts to actually deal with race issues.
But isn't there a reluctance, really, of the law to help any minorities in this country, and particularly people of limited means now?
Well, I think that in a sense is another layer on what is already a significant problem, and has always been a problem for black people in this country. Very often when we've turned to the police for help, the courts for help, we've got a resounding no. And I think what we're attempting to do is to put race full in the face of this government and say, you must take this issue seriously, because if you don't, our communities, as they have historically done, will act in self-defence, which is also justified by law.
Do you think there are still some people in society who believe that we need to have an all-white society and an all-black society and you can't mix the races? Do you think there are still people who believe that?
I think there's white people who've always believed that racism is a creed of life and they, for some reason, are superior types of people.
But some black people believe that as well.
I think that is not really the issue. What we're dealing with here is white people's racism. And because in this country they have the power and control over our lives and destiny.
Do we have any black judges? I ought to know that.
There are 2 full-time black judges and about 14, 15 part-time judges in the higher courts.
And as a percentage of population, how does that work out?
It's about 1% of the total population. So where the power is, we're very poorly reflected. And therefore you have a situation where even the Director of Public Prosecutions, Barbara Mills, was only able to say in a meeting a few weeks ago that the Crown Prosecution Service have only just started monitoring racial incidents in 1993. And that's 4 years after the Home Office issued guidelines saying that they ought to do that. That's the problem we've got.
Last question to you, Peter. Do you think that this law of racial violence could, though, as I've put to Jean and to Mark, backfire?
I don't think there's any danger of any legislation which has its prime objective as being human rights would ever backfire. It depends upon the commitment of people in power and authority to make it work. And what we're saying is any law will fail if you don't have that commitment.
OK, thank you all. We'll talk to you a little later. Now we do something completely different. We go to the competition. You can take a deep breath. Looking a little worried there, Jean. Have a glass of water. Right, a couple of weeks ago we did a programme on hunting. Thank you for all the mail, by the way, on that. And Susie Meir from Birmingham won the competition. She will be off to Crete. This week's competition, you could be on your way, a holiday for 2 on the island of Mallorca with the club Holidays. It must be taken before the end of June 1993. So get on and phone this number now, 0891 900 007. The question is easy. What type of dance is Spain famous for? The foxtrot, the flamenco, or the waltz? Best of luck. I don't know. Over to Jerry Hayes. Over to Jerry Hayes. How are you, Jerry? Ladies and gentlemen, the honourable member for Harlow. Did you hear that? Yes. Very half-hearted round of applause there.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing.
Very disappointing, but I suppose
hurt.
you can expect none other. Being a Tory, you'll be expecting that sort of behaviour, won't you?
Are we doing well, eh?
What do you think? Just before, we're talking tonight about a law of racial violence. What do you think? Should there be one? As a serving member at the moment?
Well, I was a barrister for 17 years, and I was in a set of chambers, which I'm still technically a member of, which have a lot of black people. In fact, it was run by Dinglefoot. You remember Dingle? It's now run by Desmond de Silva, who's a Sri Lankan. I'm as against racism
That's
as
like
everyone
saying
here.
some of my best friends
No,
are
it's
black.
not. No, what it means is we've got a completely open door policy. That's what it's
Oh,
really
I see,
all
right,
about.
okay,
Oh, no,
yes,
no, no,
I
no.
see.
There is some
And
discrimination.
I eat curry as well, you know. I know a couple-
No.
Why doesn't the
Careful.
government do something to help out?
Well, the fact is, we are doing what we can, but I don't think a law, and you actually put the point, and I think put it very well, I think there would be a backlash
That was
if you
nice
had a...
of you.
Well, it's good questioning. There would be a backlash if there was a specific law. We've actually got the Public Order Act, and I sat on the committee of the Public Order Act, helped write something. You look at Section 18.
Well, all right, never mind what
Yeah,
you wrote,
yeah.
but get it, okay, yeah.
Well, it's a particularly good section. No, but it's not useless. The fact of the matter is the laws exist. The thing is, as
Hang on,
the
just
lady
one minute.
from
While he's there,
the
why is it
commission said-
useless? I'm interested.
Why is it
Why
useless?
is it
Why is it
useless? Sorry.
Could Jerry
One-
Hayes tell me how many cases have been brought under that particular?
I shouldn't think
Of
so
the
for 1
Hobbes Act?
minute.
No, of course I could.
Because hardly any. That's the reality. And if you have a serious approach, firstly, you'll use that law to bring hundreds of cases. And also,
Provides that there's the
if
evidence.
that law isn't working, then it's about time the government started thinking black people in this country matter if they're being violently
Hear, hear.
attacked racially,
Okay.
then the government should
Disagree with that.
start
Let
doing
the,
things
Covered by
that they've done.
Section 5. It's
Let the
covered
honourable
by
member-
se- It's covered. It's,
Why don't
no,
you-
no.
Hang
It's
on,
covered-
hang on.
it's-
You
it's-
think it's covered by Section
I do
5.
think it's covered
the
by Section
audience,
5.
primarily the majority of the audience, don't think it's covered by
Well,
Section
I just
5.
with great respect think they're wrong. When you actually come before a court of law, just a
Hang on,
moment.
hang on, let her
No,
finish.
all right,
Let
go
her
on. Yeah,
finish.
okay.
The law doesn't work, and it's quite clear that nobody has come up and accused of police or anybody has been accused of racial harassment because the police are racist. How can you
Oh,
actually
really?
bring
That's a
in
terrible
a
generalisation.
racial
That's not
harassment
true.
bill
It's
and
not
ask
about
the
racial
people,
harassment anyway.
the
It's
same
not
people
covered in bill.
who are a racist police force, and figures prove it. Even the Home
Can you-
Office
can you-
admits
sorry, what is your
that
name?
a lot more people
Absolutely
have been,
What is your
black
name,
people
madam?
have been stopped on the streets.
What is your name?
Pam Lawrence.
Pamela, okay. Listen,
Yeah.
do you think that
I think
the
that's
police
absolute
force is racist in any way, shape or
Look,
form?
of
Do you
course
think
there-
there is any racism in the police force at all?
Look, I spent 17 years defending black people in Brixton.
Yes,
at
but
Camberwell Green Magistrate.
Never-
And of course you come... Hey, let me just answer the question. You'll have a good go in a minute. You'll have a good go. Just,
hang on.
why don't you just listen?
Let him
Why don't you
finish, let
just
him finish.
listen? And the fact of the matter is, of course there's been racism in the police force.
Fine. There has been racism in the
Of
police
course
force.
there has
Okay.
been, and we're
now,
trying to
we've got
wipe it
move on.
out.
Just a minute.
So is the new
Are the
commissioner.
Tories trying to wipe it out? You're telling me you are?
Of course we are. One
Right,
was one of the
okay.
first
Later on we'll
statements-
talk
one of the
more.
first
Later on we'll
statements
talk
of the
more.
new
Thank you.
commissioner trying to do that.
Jerry Hayes, thank you very much
Encouraging.
indeed.
Dreadful
Okay.
nonsense.
Okay.
I'll come and
okay.
sort them out later.
We should. Do you want applause for Jerry Hayes at this particular point? Oh, no, a little. I think just a little
be
ripple
back.
for Jerry
I'll be
Hayes.
back.
He's going to be back.
I
He
shall
said he's going to
return.
be back, and there's going to be trouble. Bullet and Blue Eyes are a new band to TV. They're a new band to recording. They're going to be huge successes. We have never heard anything quite as loud in this small studio, I must say. So please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, singing Living in a World. First time on TV, Bullet and Blue Eyes.
Living in a world where a man can't feed his family. Living in a world, brother kills brother because of his color. There's no excuses, and time don't hear them anyway. I can hear the people say, let's change our ways, let's change our ways. Yeah. Let the love inside your heart shine up in the sky. So long since you've been free, love equals unity. No point in fighting. I think you better light up now, 'cause I can hear the people say, let's change our ways, let's change our ways. Go! I heard it on the news today. My brother was blown away. Some brother kept shooting him down. More trouble going on in town. People have a different way. Poor people got nothing to say. Bad times in the world today. Let's change our ways. Starvation on the TV screen, so bad, yeah, you know what I mean. Love and hate versus ugly head. I heard it banging out my country's dead. Rich people have a different way. The poor man has got nothing to say. Bad times in the world today. Let's change our ways. Go!
That was a quick little run for you, wasn't it? Very good. You all right up there? Okay. We're here now. Right, so that was Bullet and Blue Eyes and Living in a World. Great. That has to be a hit, guys. That is excellent. Thank you. Fantastic. Now, just before we go to the break, reminder of the competition. You can win that holiday for two on the sunny island of Mallorca. All you have to do is ring 0891 900 007 and tell us what type of dance is Spain famous for. Foxtrot, flamenco or waltz? We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Central St Martin's School of Art are with us tonight, providing the decor. How are you doing, Trudy, all right?
Oh, not too bad.
Good, talking there. What is this?
Right.
Why is he bald?
It's a stereotype.
Is it?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think all this problem starts in the playground.
Yes.
Kids are taught stereotypes. I was beaten up severely because, one, I supported the wrong football team. Two, I spoke another language.
What language?
Spanish.
Oh, right. Well, don't enter the competition
¿Tienes
tonight.
ganas cojones?
Por favor. Yes.
Good.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed for that. A little ripple for the artists tonight. Oh, that was good. You see why I went over? Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Jacobs. Okay. This is where we give you the free legal advice on the programme. Doesn't cost you a penny. And a lot of people have actually been writing in, wanting to know if you will help them do their houses, conveyancing and stuff like that. And we've had to write back and say, no, you can't.
No, I won't.
You won't do that.
I won't.
Okay.
Some people don't like that, but I won't.
Now, just before we... Sorry, Michael. Sorry. Yes, Michael? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Yes, Michael said, queuing, I was right across your face like that. And I'm sorry, I won't do that again.
That's probably the best shot of my face that they've ever done.
No, I'm not rising to that. No. And I'm not going to tell you what he just said. What about, let's go serious, what about this new law, racial violence? Should there be a new law, racial violence? What do you think?
My opinion, most definitely not. The laws that we have in this country, properly applied by the police and the courts, are adequate to protect everybody regardless of their colour. The problem is that they are not properly applied by the police. They do not endeavour to investigate sufficiently, or if they do, they don't make it clear to the people that they are doing that. There's too much secrecy in how the police investigate things. As far as I'm concerned, we don't need a change in the law. We need a change in attitude from a very young age right the way through the whole of our society. But the law is there to protect everybody.
Now, I find, we'll talk about that sort of later towards the end of the debate.
I must say one thing about a new law. If we had a new law that said you must prove not only the assault, but also a racial motive, you'd have even more racialist attacks getting away with acquittals in the Crown Courts because they find it difficult enough to believe one aspect without believing two aspects of it.
OK, let me ask you another thing, because this is an interesting point. That from time to time, in your experience... we'll come back at the end and you have your say.
I know it's no argument, but it's reality.
We'll come back and talk about that later. Time to time, you're Jewish.
Yes.
You've actually...
I'm Jewish all the time.
You're Jewish all the time, but from time to time you have actually represented racists, haven't you?
Of course I do. I will represent anybody who comes into my office, regardless of what they're accused of. Whether they're black accused of attacking white people, or white accusing of attacking black, or white accused of attacking white. I don't apply any morality to it. As far as I'm concerned, my function is to give the best available representation, not defence, to anybody. And that's every lawyer's duty.
All right, we'll take some of the questions that people have written into the programme and we'll come back and talk more about that later. Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine recently went for a job interview and didn't get it because he believed the interviewer thought he was gay. What can you do about it?
Well, as far as I understand the law, there is nothing to say that you can take somebody to court for inequality because of their being gay, and I'm afraid to say there's very little he can do. What he should do, perhaps, is attract as much local publicity about the matter. If he isn't gay and he feels it's of some importance, if he is gay, he should hold his head high and not worry too much. He wouldn't want to work for that person anyway.
Oh, well, a friend
that's it. Stuff him, basically.
A friend of mine is building on.
A friend of yours?
Yeah, building onto his house, but the builder's disappeared, leaving the job half done.
Yes.
What can he do?
Well, there's not a lot he can do if the builder's disappeared. What he should do is make sure he hasn't paid a builder in advance, because it sometimes happens. He'll have to get another builder in and finish the work, but make sure he complies with building regulations. Gentlemen there.
Yeah, are taxi drivers allowed to claim full fare once they get lost?
No, they're only entitled to take you the shortest route. If they take you a route longer than the shortest route, you only need to pay them for what would be the shortest route.
Have you tried getting away with that?
Yes. Yes. My father was a taxi driver.
Go on.
They're all an obnoxious crowd of people.
The other day, my next door neighbour's
really.
cat
Right to him,
ate
not
a
me.
carp from my fish pond. Can I claim against my neighbour for replacing the cost of the fish?
Well, the cat is removing fish. No, not at all. I have, in fact, had people come into my office with this problem, and it's not uncommon, especially with very expensive koi carp. The answer is that the owner of the carp must take steps to protect their carp on their land from cats. An owner of a cat is not going to be responsible if that cat strays onto somebody else's land and causes damage.
OK, thank you very much indeed for that. You'll be with us a little later on to defend your point of view.
That was a marathon, wasn't
Won't
it?
you? OK, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Jacobs. Now, if you have a legal... There we are. If you have a legal problem, how's that? Is that OK? That's the address to write to, or if you want to write to us about anything else at all, maybe where Trudy gets her clothes from or something like that, or if you know somebody who could appear on the programme. It's nice to have people who've never been on television before. Wail on, MMTV, 5 to 7 Carnaby Street, London, W1V1PG. You'd be amazed at the people who just call in as well. Now, let's carry on with tonight's topic, a law of racial violence, or against racial violence. John Fitzpatrick, you're a lecturer at Kent University in law. You don't think there should be?
I don't think there should be, no. I don't think there will be either. I don't think there should be because I don't think it will do anything to address a very real problem. I think there is a very real problem. I think something should be done. I don't think the law is the vehicle for doing it.
Well, if you don't use the law, I mean, how are you going to get anything done?
Well, I think we should do it ourselves. I think that it's
taking the law into our own hands? Or?
Definitely take the law into our own hands. I think
anarchy?
Well,
violence on the streets?
It needn't be anarchy. I think it can mean everything from, you know, patrolling estates, mobilising people in streets, in local communities, defending people, telephone networks, calling around on neighbours, having demonstrations.
Sounds to me like you're
meetings.
sort of wanting vigilante groups. I think that surely that's going to cause more problems than anything else.
Well, I think there's more to be said for that than the absurd notion that the law is going to resolve a very complex social problem. We have racial attacks, and they've got to be stopped because we've got a racist society. Now, we're not going to challenge racism in our society by giving the state and the police more powers. And it doesn't seem to have occurred to the people who are proposing this bill that the state and the police and the courts are the vehicle for a lot of racism in the first place.
So that's a bit of a cop-out saying we have a racial society, and I mean, we have got to do something about it seriously. We've got to use the law rather than ourselves. Let me go to Patrick Harrington. Patrick, do you think we do have a racist society?
I think that there's elements of racism in the police force and in some of the power structures, and I would define racism as a racial hatred, not a belief in differences between different communities.
Is it something that we should be addressing more thoroughly, do you think?
Well, I think that what's been discussed so far is to discuss symptoms of a problem which is much wider. I think that if you look at attacks on women, attacks on gay people because of their sexuality, one could argue that we need specific laws to cover these people, these groups. Why are these groups left out? This is being promoted as a political agenda, as a way of getting at the establishment, getting at the police structures by various left-wing and Trotskyite groups. And it's been promoted very heavily. There have been racial attacks on white people, and I don't recall these groups campaigning on that issue. And it seems to me a very one-sided point of view that's being put across.
But isn't it... Now, Patrick, I have to be fair here. You used to be a member of the National Front, didn't you? I know you're not now. You used to be... and you thought that the sort of publicity that the National Front got all the time from yobs in the street and things like that was very unfair.
Well, I think that the people who commit racial attacks are people with criminal backgrounds in a wide range of crimes. They're people who are burglars, they're people who might attack other people because they support a rival football team. And I don't think that just passing a law to protect black people from their attentions really solves the problem.
OK, what should we do then? What should we do?
Well, the fundamental problem is there's been a breakdown of traditional morality within our society, that people do feel alienated from the society. There's no sense of community. And we have to address that problem. This is just one symptom.
Now, you're no longer, as I said before, you're not a racist now, are you?
I've never been a racist.
You've never been a racist?
I've never been a racist. I believe in racial differences. I don't
You believe in racial... But can you live next door to somebody of a different colour?
I do.
I mean, you're sitting next door to,
I mean, the point
to
is,
Ken and Malik.
What,
here.
I would say to you is that I think one of the problems is that the media is blocked to communication between different groups.
Well, I'm trying not to be
here,
which is why I'm talking to you about this.
What I would say is that I believe in racial separatism, as Marcus Garvey believed in racial separatism.
You mean black people shouldn't live in this country?
If I am a racist, then so is Marcus Garvey.
Well,
and so is Louis Farrakhan.
Do you believe
so
black people should be allowed to live in this country?
And I think it's hypocritical. It's difficult taking lessons on morality from somebody who used to be the national flag.
I know. Let me... We'll come back and talk to Patrick in a few moments. I want to bring in Kenan Malik now. Kenan, you are an Asian writer.
That's right.
And you are against this sort of law being brought in as well.
That's right.
Tell me why.
Because people like Patrick Harrington and his cronies in the National Front
You don't mind sitting next to
are scum.
cronies,
But the real problem are not the mindless morons in the National Front. The real problem are the thugs in uniform, the police. And the point about a Racial Harassment Act,
but you're not telling me that not every policeman is racist, is he? I mean, come on, there are some good policemen.
Let me finish. The point about a Racial Harassment Bill is the first question it raises is who would enforce it. Asking the police to enforce a law against racial harassment is a bit like asking Hannibal Lecter to take charge of security in a pork pie factory. It's absurd.
Or King Herod to run a creche, I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
80 black people have died in police stations or in prison over the last 25 years. That's far more than anybody than at the hands of the far right.
I agree. And from the top, we need to look at it. We need to say, for God's sake, what is all this separate development? You were talking about separate development. Do you believe? I mean, Asian communities. You go back to India or Pakistan, Bangladesh. There's some very racist things that go on over there. Do you actually believe we can ever, maybe I'll ask all three of you here, can we ever live together? Will we ever be able to get on together?
We can live together so long as you don't live in a society that is institutionally racist from the top down. See, you live in a society where, just this month, there's a law going through Parliament, the Asylum Bill, which says that the real problem in this country are that there are too many foreigners coming into this country. We need to keep foreigners out. The problem in Britain is that black people and foreigners are coming into this country. So long as Parliament, so long as our
black people and
politicians...
foreigners? I mean, why can't we all just be foreigners from other countries? Why do we have to talk about the colour? I mean, I've been trying to get my skin to change colour all day today, sitting in the sun.
You shouldn't ask me that. You should ask the people who make racist laws that. It's interesting, for example, that immigration laws are exempt from the provisions of the Race Relations Act. That's an indication of how racist the laws that are made in Parliament are. The point is that you live in a racist society. So long as you live in a racist society, you cannot use the institutions of that racist society to fight racism.
OK, we're going to come back in the third part. We will all have our turn. Thank you very much indeed. But let's have some more music now. Bullet and Blue Eyes singing Money.
future. I bet you think that's funny. Money on the shelf life, you cannot hoard what can't survive. Never no more need to bank with these bankers, ain't worth the money on the shelf life, you cannot hoard what can't survive. Never no more need to bank with these bankers, ain't worth the. That's right. You know, they gave me 2 years, and they want to take me off the dole.
Whoa! That is, guys, that is fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Bullets and Blue Eyes. And they're bringing some new stuff out fairly soon. I know, I'm watching the band over here. I was just thinking, great that we have a band there that I was bicultural, black and white, sort of a bit of punk and a bit of soul music and a bit of rock all mixed into one. Michael says, cue music, absolutely fabulous. After the break, we'll be back with our main discussion tonight. I'm sorry. Hillary, you yelled at me and I missed that. What did you say, Hillary? Competition. Right, OK. 0891 900 007, the number to ring if you would like this holiday in Mallorca for two. All you have to do is answer this one simple question. What type of dance is Spain famous for? Foxtrot? Possibly. Flamenco? Could be. Waltz? Who knows? Well, there we are, a poignant picture, but will it ever happen? Who knows? Let me go over here. This is George Silcott, well-known name, because, of course, his brother is still having trouble. And I asked George in the break whether he thought there was any point in this new law against racial violence. You don't think there is?
No, not as far as I'm concerned. I don't think a thing will ever change. We just have to look what's happening. I mean, just like my brother's case, it didn't do him any good. He's still suffering injustice today. I don't think if a law comes out to, I don't think it will do any good whatsoever.
Do you, I mean, are there a lot of white racists in this country as far as you're concerned? I mean, are the police basically, in your eyes, racist?
Well, it's not just the police. You have to go further than that. It's the whole state, it seems. When they crucified my brother in the press and the media, the judge and everybody went along with the whole parcel. So it's not just the police, it's the whole system. The way it is at the moment is racist.
OK, sitting behind you is Tony Banks. Tony's a journalist, not a politician. And you've written many articles, done a lot of research, Tony, on the police. And I'm worried. We did ask some people from the police to come, but they couldn't find the time today. They're very busy, couldn't do this programme today. But we did ask. I'm concerned that we do not... I mean, if the police is this racist, obviously something has to be done. I mean, it is our country, our police force of the people, presumably. you've been researching it. Is it as bad as people say?
Well, first of all, I don't think it is police of the people anyway. But I think that if you had the police here, what you'd probably have found is that they'd been scrupulously anti-racist. They'd have come out with all the politically correct remarks and they'd have expressed all their regrets and so on. And I think the matter of individual views of police officers is neither here nor there, because the job that they're paid to do, the laws that they're paid to impose, are racist laws, as I agree with people who've made that point. Specifically on this law, I would say that, first of all, if you look at the way people have said we don't need a special law because the laws are there already. You see, the way the laws are implemented at the moment, most people's experiences of racial harassment, racist attacks, come where actually the victims are the ones who get intimidated and arrested quite often for defending themselves against the police, or against racists themselves. And I also think that if a law came in, it would further this idea that it's a problem of law and order and just a question of a few idiots hitting each other because they don't like each other.
Let me go, just before I come to you, let me go to Patrick, who's been moved up the back because people didn't like his views up there. Patrick, why? You said to me earlier you believe in not separate development, it was, how did you put it?
I'm a separatist.
You're a separatist. Now, we are, whether you like it or not, a multiracial society in this country. Is it not fair to say people like you, I don't know, there's a gentleman sitting beside you who I think probably shares some of your views on this, is that right, sir?
Yes, I do. I share Patrick's views.
Yes, I mean, as a sort of fairly elderly gentleman,
no, I'm Eurasian.
If I could say, do you not think it is really with you and Patrick to try to make people realise that this violence against somebody because of the colour of their skin is just not on?
I've tried to come on this programme to say that people should, that I feel that the introduction of a new law is divisive. And I think people should unite to get the police to enforce the laws that are there and to do their job. And I think that establishment of a new law is letting the police off the hook. It is unnecessary.
Fine, okay,
what is necessary is for the law to be enforced fairly, impartially and correctly.
But is it
And the point is that everyone in the community would accept and agree with that. What is being proposed here is being done for political motives.
Okay.
It's being done by far left
Let me
groups,
reword
by
this.
Marxists.
Forget being
and the
far...
point is that this is
Hang
a
on.
political...
Patrick,
thing.
Listen to me. I want to try and clear this up because we'll hear this and we'll go one policy of one side, we go to the other side, back, forth, back, forth. I don't want to do that, right? I am aware, because I watch television, you watch television, read newspapers, etc. I am aware that we are becoming increasingly intolerant in this society, and we're blaming people who are different to ourselves. People who wear glasses might get picked on, or bald. You and I both share something in common. Why can we not say to people, for goodness sake, whatever your skin colour is, whatever your religion is, basically, it doesn't matter a shit. It's just a fact that you're a human being. You shouldn't have any problems getting on with somebody who is different to you.
Because you won't be
I just want to hear Patrick respond to this first of all.
I think that there is a lack of respect between people. I respect other people's views. I listen to their views. I don't call them scum. I don't insult them. I listen to what they have to say and I formulate a view on it.
You just hate blacks?
I don't hate blacks at all. We cooperate with black nationalists. We cooperate with black
But is your goal, Patrick,
and the point is
your goal
I would say that this is a
misapprehension. This
is what causes the problem. A lack of
Hang on, just a minute. Let's get this answer. Is your goal that you would like to see black people removed from this country? Is that what you want?
No.
No, right? No. You said no. Let me come back over here. Sorry. No.
He's not the problem. Idiots like Patrick Harrington are not the problem.
Okay, what is the
real problem is the institutional racism. The institutional racism that the respectable people... The institutional racism that the respectable people in this society promote, and the idea that boys in blue are the answer to racist violence. Now that's the problem. A few fringe idiots on the right are not the issue.
What worries me, and try and keep this apolitical if we can, what worries me is you're saying we should have vigilantes, we should have people roaming the streets protecting ourselves.
I'm saying that we shouldn't give up on the people, we shouldn't give up on ourselves, and we shouldn't put our faith... I mean, Patrick Harrington and Mark Wadsworth both believe in British law and order and the British police. What I'm saying is, let's believe in ourselves.
Mark, just a moment. just a minute. Let's come to Mark. Let Mark answer that particular
White Ivory
point.
Tower in, what is it, Kent University?
Mark,
in
answer the point.
Canterbury.
Never mind about where he is.
He's got his bobber boots
losing
on.
the argument.
He's got his bobber boots on. He's siding with the police. The police
Hang on,
don't
just a
want.
minute.
The police
He's
don't.
losing the argument.
Will you let me finish?
No, well,
You believe in democracy, do you, and free speech?
Mark.
You're a libertarian. Right. You're siding with the police who don't want a racial harassment bill, who don't want a specific criminal offence, because they don't want to enforce it. Yes, there is widespread racism in the police. Even Jerry Hayes admits that now, as a Conservative MP.
Peter,
the way to
just a
deal
minute,
with
we'll
it
come
is to
over
have
there.
law
Peter.
that they must enforce on behalf of black people.
Over this way here, now to this gentleman here.
An element of sanity in
Yes,
some of
please.
this debate. First of all, there is a parliament which has passed already something called Section 95 of the Criminal Justice Act. That reminded every agency working within the system that they must avoid racial discrimination. It is being used to challenge racism in the courts, from the Lord Chief Justice on down. If Parliament says racism is a criminal offence and backs it with a commitment, it will work. The MP's argument is fallacious. If we had that as an argument, then there would be no Race Relations Act, there would be no legislation of any sort. What you do, you make the system work, and that means commitment.
Right, this gentleman here in grey in the middle. Just a moment, this guy in grey.
Yeah, James, I just want to say that if you get a group of people that have sort of separatist views, you come across an area, for example, like Norwich, for example, where I was racially attacked 2 years ago by 15 people. Now, in charge of the case, which took 3 weeks, was a judge. The jury were all white. The whole town is basically all white. We have a minority of 100 blacks in a whole town. Therefore, you get the jury all white, so therefore you have an all-white court. And the court found me guilty after being attacked by 15, which is 5 in 1.
Because you were black?
No,
You
not
shouldn't have been a black man
necessarily.
walking
Not
along
just
there.
that, not just that, but they found me guilty of violent disorder. The judge actually said, Judge John Binns in Norwich actually said to me, Mr. Moore, we cannot distinguish between you and the attackers. You have all been charged with the same offence, which is violent disorder, therefore you must all go to prison for 2 years.
Did you go to prison for 2 years? Did you do 2 years in
I
prison?
did 6 months,
Okay.
came out on appeal.
I want to come to Gary Jacobs. Gary, I want you to tell me why this is happening. Why are we in this situation? Then I want Jerry Hayes to come and tell me, as a member of the governing party of this country, what the government should do.
I think so far as this country is concerned, our police force, from my experience, have never put sufficient into investigating racial attacks. But it goes further than this government. If you read any newspaper, any day, all you see all over the world is racist attacks by one government upon another government. And I'm afraid to say that I think it starts at government, and it must be government who puts it right by taking a lead.
Okay.
And we've never had a government, Labour or Tory, that's taken a lead on this problem.
Jerry,
in my
what do you
opinion.
think we're prepared? I mean, we are not, and I don't know. There's always talk of a nasty right-wing undercurrent in the Tory party, the same way there's a nasty left-wing undercurrent of the Labour Party.
There is.
Right.
There is.
What can be done to these prats who don't understand that people are people? They've got to get on just as human beings.
At the end of the day, the prats, there's nothing we can do about it. No matter how you educate, no matter
We
what you...
must
No,
surely
come on,
do something.
Come on.
That's a politician's
it
idea.
It happens to be true. The racist... Just a minute. Can we
Let me have an answer.
I thought this is rather
Hold on.
intolerant.
Let me hear.
This
let me
is rather
hear.
intolerant.
Shush. Right. You will be
people
next.
are talking about toleration.
What do you expect
anyone with
them?
a contrary view?
What do you
Excuse
expect
me.
them to do?
Tell me
expect
about
them
the
to do is
asylum
listen.
bill. What will you do about the asylum bill?
The
Why was
asylum
the
bill?
asylum bill worth passing? It was, after all, just a bit of...
How many white people are affected by
Gary,
it?
just be quiet
How many
and
white
listen.
people are affected
Will
by
you
it? Not
just
one
be-
that I
Gary,
know of.
Gary, just be
Jerry,
listening.
answer
You
the
might
question
actually
or we'll
learn
be out of
something.
time.
Right. The answer to the question is this. The Asylum Act was passed for very simple reasons. Firstly, there were so many people coming over for economic reasons and not for reasons... 50,000 people. This was a system.
Okay.
This was a system. No, this is a system to weed those people out. A system of appeal which is quick.
Perhaps
and
we need
fair.
world government.
Quick.
Right. Okay, stop. This lady, your name?
Kirsten Cole.
Right,
Here we
Kirsten.
have a respectable Tory talking
Yes.
about Pratt's in his own party. What about John Major and Douglas Hurd? Very respectable men. They don't like Screwdriver. They probably don't like what they call Nazis, but they are prepared to implement the asylum bill. And that is a racist bill, and he comes from a racist party.
It's not racist. Okay. Come up here. Gentleman at the back. This gentleman here right at the back.
Historical flesh on this debate.
Good.
Because in terms of the Public Order Act, which
Where do you
Jeremy...
come from, sir?
I come from Camden Black Workers Group, and I'm a
And
member of Workers Against Racism.
Do you feel that you're a member of this British country or not? Would you?
As far as I'm concerned, that's the technical definition.
Okay.
Right? Whether
Why?
I belong actually is the social definition.
All right, okay. But do you feel as if you're part of our society or not?
I feel that I want a part of the society.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't feel that I've got equal rights in this society. Okay?
Right.
In terms of the Public Order Act, it was brought in the 1930s to deal with allegedly the fascists that were gathering in the East End of London. It was campaigned for by anti-racists. But who did they use the Public Order Act against? They used it against the same people who wanted to fight the fascists. Similarly, with the updating of the Public Order Act in the 80s, what was it used for? To intimidate trade unionists. It wasn't used for any anti-racist measures.
Can I move?
The right of assembly.
I want to move to the guy behind you. Who do you represent, sir? Yes, right behind you.
I support Third Way.
Tell me what the third way is.
Well, Third Way.
Come on, you support them, tell me.
Exactly.
Third Way.
Everybody
in
else
this
be quiet,
context,
because unfortunately we don't have a lot of time. I want to hear this. Go on.
we support separate development.
Do you feel
of
embarrassed
the
being
races.
here? I mean, do you feel... There is no way I, or I hope people who are with me, would ever want to live in a country that supported that. I'll say that now on television. Don't you feel embarrassed to say that?
Well, I don't
You're
think,
sitting here with people
I
of
don't
mixed
believe
origins.
things are going to get any better, actually.
And who you blame it on people who are different to yourself?
No, there's a lot of white people that are doing these things as well. Yeah. There's a lot of white people who are attacking.
Let me come to the guy in the front. Let me come to the guy down here in the front. Okay. Yeah, just a minute. Just a minute. I want to make this point that there are very quiet guys sitting at the back looking smug. Two over there, very smug. I don't know why you're looking smug. Okay, I want to talk to this guy who's not so smug in the front, but you do feel that you can't get on with black people?
I can get on with black people.
You can?
I'm a very tolerant man.
So what's your problem?
What my problem is, I think a law like this is against racist attacks.
Yeah.
It's a political term that's applied in a racist way. Because the main victims of racist attacks, the main victims of racism in this country are the white people. The white people.
Let me hear him. Okay, let me hear him defend this point.
All
Tell
the
me.
time,
Right.
there's muggings galore take place, rapes take place. They're never described as a racist attack if the perpetrator is black and the victim's white. It's never described as racism.
Okay, hold that thought. Come to this guy here who is for Workers Against Racism.
Right, I'm the London
Right.
organiser of Workers
Okay.
Against Racism. My name's Mark Butler. Shut up or I'll sort you out.
Hey!
Can we have a discussion? Right. There is an important point that he made there. There is an important point that he made there. And he is showing the direction that this legislation is going to go in.
Okay.
As far as the police are concerned, there is no distinction between a white attack on blacks and a black attack on
So you
whites.
think they should?
As far as they're concerned, that's right. That's right.
Often.
Right, it's true, but the legislation... But the legislation... That's the point I'm making.
Let me come for one.
Excuse me, James, can I finish? Right.
We're running right out of time.
That is the point that I'm making. But as far as the police are concerned, as far as the laws are concerned, there is no distinction. So when we see this bill implemented,
We're out of time. I hope, this will go on now afterwards, I hope that we may be able to talk the police into coming in and doing this programme maybe in a couple of months' time again and looking at it again and having some people from the police force. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. I mean, don't you think, just while we've got a couple of seconds more, that is going to cause...